Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my January-February wrap-up. It's like mid-March, but you know what, we're doing it. It's happening. I read a total of 14 books, 7 in January, 7 in February, and just for some statistical purposes, in case you were wondering, I rated 2 out of the 14 books 5 stars, 8 out of the 14 books 4 stars, and then 3 out of the 14 books 3 stars. I read 4 romance novels, 2 classics, 2 books of poetry, 1 graphic novel, 1 young adult fantasy, 1 young adult science fiction, and then 2 contemporary. And between the months of January and February, I read a total of 3,759 pages. In January, I read a total of 1,987, which averaged out to be 64 pages a day, and then February, I read a total of 1,772 pages, which averaged out to be 63 pages a day. So I guess I slowed down a little bit in February, which is understandable, but we are going to go and just like get through this video. So some of the books I have, some of them I don't, because they're either an ebook, and I'll talk about those, or I read them in January when I was back at home, and so I didn't bring them back to campus with me because I had already read them. First book on my list, or the first book I finished in the year, was Dividing Eden. Alright, so I'm gonna try and pronounce Homegirl's name correctly. Dividing Eden by Joelle Charbonnet. Essentially, it's a book about these twins. They are prince and princess of this royal family called the Royal Family of Eden. The king and the crown prince are murdered, and so the people need a leader, and no one knows who was born first between the twins, so one of them has to take the throne, and so they're like council of, not advisors, but like their council of noblemen are like, alright, cool, so in order for the throne to stay in your family, you two have to compete for who should be the leader. And it's so fascinating seeing how the characters change, especially the character of the brother, because it's a girl and a boy, so especially the character of the brother, and you're just like, why? You know, why are you doing this? And I gave that book 4 stars. Next book that I read in the year was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. That's the second book in the Lunar Chronicle series. I absolutely loved that book. Did I give it a 5? I gave it a 4. Oh, interesting. It wasn't better than Cinder, but it's pretty close. I'm currently reading Cress right now. If you saw my 24-hour reading challenge video, I'm currently reading Cress, but Scarlet basically follows this girl named Scarlet, and if you may know or may not know, the Lunar Chronicles are science fiction infused with fairy tales. So Cinder is about Cinderella, or not about Cinderella, but follows that same storyline and character development, and then Scarlet is about Little Red Riding Hood, and so we follow that. The great thing I like, and I was a little bit like scared about it when I was going into Scarlet, was I got so attached to these characters in Cinder, and I was like, am I not going to see them again? But you do see the characters from Cinder in Scarlet, and then as I'm reading Cress, I can tell you that you see the characters from both books in Cress. So it's really interesting how she's just kind of building and building and building, and she's a great world builder, which I really, really appreciate. The next book I actually have, it is a comic book. It's Supergirl Volume 1, Reign of the Cyborg Superman. So if you know anything about Supergirl, you know that she is supposed to be the last daughter of Krypton, whereas her cousin Superman is the last son of Krypton, blah blah blah. And so in this, you realize, oh man, I don't want to give it away. What's it read on the back? Okay, yeah, no, I can give it away. And so in this, you meet her cyborg father, who she thought was dead, but apparently he's not. And she basically has to battle him because he's not who she remembers. And so she struggles with that. And at the, yeah, I'm not gonna say what happens at the end. But yeah, it's just a beautiful book. I'm trying to find like one of my favorite pages. Yeah, look at that. This is a flashback scene. But yeah. I gave this 4 stars as well. In order for me to give something 5 stars, or as I was saying before, 5 bookmarks out of bookmarks, in order for me to give something 5 stars or 5 bookmarks, I have to absolutely be in love with it, like enthralled. It has to be hands down one of my favorite books, and a lot of books don't do that for me. I'm very picky and selective with which books I give 5 stars to. So the next 2 books are ebooks, and I guess I should stand more center frame so you can like see them because I put them on the screen. The first one is Fighting Temptation. So it's a romance novel. It's by Casey Lynn, but it follows Jackson and Julia. Okay, cool. They are these best friends who no one thinks should be best friends. Jackson's like this rugged dude, always getting into trouble. His father wasn't a great father, so everyone kind of projects that onto him. And Julia is a sweet girl who lives with her grandmother, and they become best friends and ignore their feelings for each other in high school. And then years later, after Jackson like goes off and joins the Navy SEALs, Julia is trying to move on with her life because of something that happened, and I'm not going to reveal what, and he comes back, and it's basically just their journey to actually ending up together. And then Sweet Temptation is the second book in that series, also by Casey Lynn, and it follows Jackson's friend Sawyer and Julia's friend, I really forgot her name, Grace. Okay, yeah, it follows Jackson's friend Sawyer and Julia's friend Grace, and they were, you like kind of see them in the first book, but this is their story. And so Grace has this like horrible past. She lost her mother, but no one really knows how she lost her mother. She doesn't talk about it. And Sawyer is one of Jackson's friends in the Navy, and Sawyer likes Grace and has always liked Grace, but Grace doesn't. Okay, we're turning this down. But Grace doesn't think that she and Sawyer would be a good match, and so that's what that story is about. I need to read the third book because there's 3 like friends in each group. Really 4, but 2 of them are already together. They're like married. I want to read the third book, so maybe I will actually do that during the month of March. Gave both Fighting Temptation and Sweet Temptation 3 stars. Next is another ebook called Winter's Thaw, and it's the first book in the Compass Girl series. I gave this 4 stars, and so this is basically about Sienna Compton is her name. She is in this long-term relationship with her boyfriend from high school. She has it all figured out, what they're gonna do, where they're gonna go, when they're gonna get married, and her boyfriend is like committed, but also just, he doesn't know what he wants, if that makes sense. And so this new guy comes to town to work on her family's property, and he's just smitten with her, and she's super rude to him, and he's like, all right, cool, whatever, and they become friends, and then it all goes, not downhill, but the rest is history, I guess you could say. And I gave Winter's Thaw 4 stars. I was also an ebook. I was just in a mood to read ebooks. It was weird. So now we're moving into books that I read in the month of February. Those previous 7 books were January reads. Now we're in February reads. The first book I read and finished in February was Bad Romance by Heather Demetrius. So I talked about this book in, I think, a book haul. I don't even know, probably my January book haul, and I absolutely love this book. It is heartbreaking, it is amazing, it's so well written, and it's just like, I could not put this down. So basically this follows our main character, also named Grace, coincidentally, who, it's like a reflection letter. The entire book is addressed in the second person, or she's like, you know, I saw you from across the room, you did this, that kind of thing. And it's all to her now present ex-boyfriend, who she was dating for over a year, and she tells the story about how their relationship became abusive, manipulative, and toxic in the course of that year. And there's just so many times during reading, like while I was reading this, where I was like, no, like, this isn't cute, like, he's trapping you, no. And it's just so interesting how the author wove this story together, and it's an amazing read, but it is emotionally draining. Like, I'm not gonna stand here and say it's not. It's emotionally draining. And of course I gave this 5 stars. Don't know when I'll be reading this next, but 5 stars. Next, I finally read Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This took me quite some time to get through, which is sad because like look how tiny that is. But I just could not. I just couldn't. And so if you know nothing about Fahrenheit 451, I'm just gonna read the back. It says Guy Montag was a fireman whose job it was to start fires, and he enjoyed his job. He had been a fireman for 10 years, and he had never questioned the pleasure of the midnight runs or the joy of watching pages consumed by flames. Never questioned anything until he met a 17-year-old girl who told him of a past when people were not afraid. Then Guy met a professor who told him of a future in which people could think, and Guy Montag suddenly realized what he had to do. The concept is brilliant. I feel like this is going to be a movie. That's actually the reason why I read the book, is because my favorite YouTuber, Lily Singh, is actually in the movie, and so I was like, I want to support my girl, so it means I have to read the book. And I wasn't a fan. It was just so slow at some points. I feel like the first 2/3 of the book is just setting up the last 1/3, and then the last 1/3 I zoomed through, but the first 2/3 was just like, this is absolute torture. And so I gave it 3 stars because it's not horrible and it's not bad, and I realize that it's a classic in American literature or whatever, but I gave it 3 stars. I couldn't do it, you know? Next is a book of poetry, or I guess like a collection of poetry. It's a super thin book. This is Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth by Warsan Shire, whose work you probably have heard but didn't realize. All the poetry in Beyonce's Lemonade, the full movie version, is her poetry. Not necessarily in this book. I haven't found a collection that has those works of poetry in it, but I really enjoyed this. You know, she talks about growing up black and growing up a girl, and like watching her mother deal with her relationship and going through things, and watching her grandmother and things like that. And so it was a really cute read. I read it in one sitting. This was actually one of my Book Riot. I'm doing the Book Riot Read Harder challenge, and this was a book that I read for one of the prompts where you read a book in one sitting, which I guess isn't fair because look how thin that is. But I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 stars. Next, we have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I guess I went from like super tiny book to super huge book. And this is a series. I don't know if I know it's definitely a trilogy. I know the second book is already out, but I'm unsure if there's a 4th book. But yeah, basically we follow Leia and Elias. Leia is part of a group in society who are seen as less than, to another group in society. I'm like blanking on all the names right now, but Leia's brother is taken away. In order to find out where he is, she joins this rebellion group that her parents were a part of, and they send her into a military training facility where they train mostly boys. There's one girl there, but they train essentially all these men to become soldiers, but mostly to become killers, and like how to kill with like no remorse and things like that. And so she goes undercover as a slave to the commander. And then there's Elias, who is in that society but doesn't like it and was planning on escaping, and then something happens that makes him stay. He has to stay, and Elias and Leia end up working together in order to kind of just like get out of a sucky situation. It's a great book. I think the first 100 pages were like, alright, cool, where's the story going? And then it picks up and it just keeps on going. And I gave this book 4 stars as well. Next on the list is Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella. This is my first Sophie Kinsella book, and I'm so glad it was. I've been hearing great things about her, and I'm glad that this was my introduction to her. So Finding Audrey is about this girl named Audrey who suffers from social anxiety disorder, general anxiety disorder, and depressive episodes. You know throughout the book that something happened to her at her old school that causes her to be home, and it's just her working through that. I do want to do a more in-depth like book review, so I'm not going to give you everything I think about the book, but I found that it was really good representation of people with anxiety, as someone who like struggles with anxiety and social anxiety and things like that. I thought it was great representation, and it was just so good. I promise, I don't know when, but I will be doing a book review. I think I might actually reread the book before I do that book review, just to like have a more critical eye. But this was one of my favorite, like all-time favorite books of the year. I know it's only March, but expect to see this book pop up in another video in July. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. Next we have Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. It's a cute little book. It's actually adorable, and I like low-key want to buy the second one, which is Alice Through the Looking Glass, or Through the Looking Glass, or something like that. And the first like 50 pages are like, what are we, oh, this is where that other bookmark went. The first 50 pages I was like, alright, cool, whatever. And then it starts to get really interesting, and there's so much more to the Alice in Wonderland story that a lot of people remember. You see the like live action movie, it might be in there, but a lot of it that like, you know, there's the hair, you know, there's a Mad Hatter, you know, there's the White Rabbit, the Queen, and everything else, but there's like so much more that she does while she's in Wonderland, and I just really enjoyed it, and it's kind of inspired me to want to pick up other childhood classics like Matilda, and okay, that's the only one I can think of right now, but I don't know, like, I am kind of tempted the next time I go to Barnes & Nobles to just venture into the children's section and go to the classics section in the children's section and just kind of see what's there, especially about stories, especially for stories that I kind of know the bare minimum about, or like the basic necessities, or bare necessities? Bare necessities. Maybe I'll read the junk book next. And I gave this 4 stars. So the last book that I read in February was The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. Guillory? That's what we're going with. And I absolutely love this. This was so adorable, absolutely adorable, and I just like what? Like, it was just so good. So basically, it follows this black girl and this white man, well, black woman and this white man, and they end up stuck in an elevator together. She's there visiting her sister, and he's there because he's about to go to a wedding. His wedding date bailed on him, and it's the wedding of his ex-girlfriend who's marrying his best friend from med school, and he's like, hey, please come to this wedding with me. And the girl, the woman, Alexa, is like, well, this is weird, but hey, you know, free food, why not? And so she goes with the dude, his name is Drew, and it's just their relationship, and it deals with long distance relationships because they're like on opposite sides of California. It deals with interracial dating, and they have discussions about race, racism, privilege, and it was just a great book. Like, I expected to like it. It was like being hyped up so much. It's also written by a black woman, you know, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite books this year. It's not a favorite book, so it didn't get 5 stars, but if I could rate it, I would give it a 4.5. I gave it a 4 on Goodreads, so that's only because you like literally can't do half stars, which is weird, but I would give it a 4.5. So yeah, that is my January-February wrap-up. I read a total of 14 books, 7 books a month. Right now in the month of March, I think I have finished 3 books, I want to say. It's currently March 15th, and I have 2 more books that I'm reading right now, so I hope to surpass the 7-book marker that I've kind of set myself. I want to go above that 7-book average, and I think I can do it. January and February, especially February, were very busy months for me. March is not. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, comment down below. Please comment, I love responding back. And check back for more videos. I'm really trying to get into the habit of just releasing more videos. My usual video schedule is supposed to be every other Sunday and Wednesday. I'm trying to keep that, but also on those off weeks, still release a video. But yeah, check out my last video, which was my first 24-hour reading challenge, which was really fun, and more vlogs like that will be coming out in the future. Check out all my social media and visit my blog, casualanxiety.com, and I will see you later. Bye.